Welcome to Wax and Relax Vinyl Listening Room. My name is John, and today we're doing the Vinyl Tag 2025. This year, the 20 questions were put up by Pretty Green Vinyl Guy up in Canada, and so we're going to take a shot at them, see how we do. Number one, best 2024 purchase, new or old? Well, as far as new, I was pretty excited this year to get the Jellyfish reissues. I was lucky to find those and was pretty ecstatic when I got those. But for used stuff, I was thrilled when I came across this. This is Badfinger, live Day After Day. This was recorded live at the Cleveland Agora, 1974. It was issued by Ryko in 1990. And what makes that special was at the time, all the Badfinger stuff was still held up in the Apple Records litigation. It was really, really tough to find all those key records like No Dice and Straight Up. But this was pretty cool because you got some of those tracks and you got it on clear vinyl, which I love a good colored vinyl or a vinyl with no pigment whatsoever. But this is pretty cool. I had this on CD and I had it on cassette. I actually had never seen it on vinyl. So it was nice to kind of come across this. This was numbered, and this is number 755. Of how many, I don't know, but pretty cool. Gatefold, little obi strip. Good stuff. Yeah, I've only ever seen one of them, and this is the one I've seen. Number two, 50 years later. 50 years ago was 1975, and for me, it was that record that came out between the Moody Blues, Seventh Sojourn, and Octave. This was supposed to have been the eighth record from the Moody Blues. However, they kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus, and so Justin Hayward and John Lodge decided to make the record anyway. And so they called it Blue Jays. That would be Justin and John, J and J, from the Moody Blues, Blue Jays. This is, in my opinion, one of the finest Moody's-related records of them all. This would be like if the Moody's had a bunch of great singles and put them on one record. They're all orchestrated well, and they're great, well-written pop songs, but they're not overly long. There's no connective tissue from one to the other, just a collection of great pop songs. Definitely worth your while, and you will find that all over the $2 bin, and it's all original 75 issue stuff. Number three, album that defines a genre. I thought about this. There's a lot of genres out there, a lot of them that I like, a lot of really kind of guilty pleasure stuff for me, and one of my big guilty pleasures is Sunshine Pop. Sunshine Pop is that 60s soft rock, pre-Summer of Love, pre-hippie stuff that was just great Southern California pop. You've got, the Fifth Dimension, the Cowsills, the Mamas and the Papas, the Circle, the Association. By the way, they said that the Association were the one standout group that shouldn't have been at the Monterey Pop Festival. I don't know. Go check out that Monterey Pop video of them doing Along Comes Mary. That opened up the entire show. Those guys held their own on that. Definitely worthwhile. For me, I think that an album from that genre that defines it all is going to be Spanky and Our Gang. It is their greatest hits, or Spanky's greatest hit, the little S written in there. But there's 3 or 4 singles on here that still get a lot of play on 60s radio. Really good, delicious stuff. Definitely Sunshine Pop. Sunshine Pop was a lot of that stuff was played on the Ed Sullivan Show, especially in the wake of the Beatles. He decided to kind of hone in on the teenager music, and so he had the Mamas and the Papas, the Fifth Dimension, on Ed Sullivan all the time. Next up, best band from your home country. I thought about this long and hard. In fact, I had recorded this video before, and I had a couple of different answers, and then I realized that the video was like crooked and cockeyed, and you also couldn't hear my voice very well, so I've had to redo the whole thing. So this is take 2, and watching the other one over again, I got to make some changes to my picks. So on the first go around, I thought maybe it would have been the Doors, but then I had picked Aerosmith. But then I really thought about it. The greatest rock and roll band from America, the greatest debut album of all time from an American band, Van Halen. There's no. That's it. Number 5, an artist you miss dearly. You know how you get your Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year, and you get to find out what you listen to, and sometimes you find yourself surprised that you listen to something as much as you did. That doesn't happen for me. I am generally in the top 1% of the listeners of Doc Watson. I absolutely love Doc. I always say he's like the uncle I never had. He should be my dad's best friend. His voice is warm and inviting and comforting. His guitar playing is just unbelievable. He's in that world of folk, flat picking, bluegrass, kind of the American songbook, so to speak. Unbelievable stuff. This was 1964. He had a great career in the 70s and 80s, or actually 60s, 70s, and 80s. He played a lot with his son. Son was also a very gifted guitar player. And when his son died, he brought his grandson in, also a very good musician, and he always kept it in the family. But I love Doc Watson a whole hell of a lot. And yeah. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about Doc Watson was when he was young, he built his own banjo, his first banjo. His grandmother's cat had died. And so he skinned the cat, stretched it, tanned it, and built the banjo out of the skin of his grandmother's cat. Top that. I'll have more on Doc coming up, because actually, as we speak, I'm expecting the dog to start barking because I'm expecting the Amazon guy with a Doc Watson record. So we'll talk about that. Don't you worry about it. All right. Best live album in my collection. This was torture picking this one out. It really was. Because I was like, is it this one? Could be. That was like my whole first and second grade. Could it be this one? It had a good chance of being that one. I was like, could it be this one? It was probably going to be that one. And then I was like, well, we just did what album defines a genre, and what album would be one of the best live albums in my collection? And I'm like, this does both of those. Flat and Scruggs at Carnegie Hall. Listen to it if you get a chance. Stream it, buy it. It's usually inexpensive, but it's killer. However, I think my favorite all-time live record, and it was a triple live record, it was Wings Over America. I love Wings. I thought that the 70s McCartney stuff is just the best. I mean, I love the Beatles, but that 70s McCartney stuff, it is so nostalgic for me. It is so, ingrained in my life. There was no question that was going to be it. I had it on 8-track and left it in my van when we lent the van to my cousin. He went on a date in a movie theater in Paramus, New Jersey, and someone stole our van with my triple 8-track collection of Wings Over America, and I've never forgiven him. Your partner just dumped you. What are you playing? I'm going to wrap my hands around a big bottle of whiskey. I'm going to cry my eyes out to Billie Holiday, Lady in Satin. This album breaks my heart just to listen to it. Actually, I'm a little sad right now holding it. But this album, from an unbelievably gifted singer at the very end of her life, after all of the shit that she went through, just horrible stuff that none of us can even imagine. And you could hear the pain and all that, all those twisted emotions that, happens to someone at the end of their life. Normally you'd hear someone like that and you'd be like, they're, washed up, they're over the hill. She's able to put that into these songs and just let it rip. There's nothing like this album. She was dead within a year. Her demons had gotten the best of her, and her demons, just look up the story. She is a tragic figure in American music for sure. Number 8, best sounding drums on an album. Oh man, there's so many. And I went through and I listened to a bunch of it to see what was going to be my response for this particular question. And one of those kind of hallmark drum sounds that comes back to me from 1982. I remember hearing this and going, holy crap, what is that? Like boulders falling off of a cliff. It was Eric Carr on Kiss, Creatures of the Night. Grew up a big Kiss fan. And, Peter Criss was a great drummer for the band. He grew up a jazz drummer, Gene Krupa and all that type of stuff. So that was kind of in his wheelhouse. Eric, he was a student, not technically, but, he was a guy who grew up to the sounds of John Bonham. And that is all over this record, that big, huge, reverbed out drum sound, hard hitter, killer stuff. That is the record that kind of began Kiss's comeback. Even though it was the last record of the original run with Makeup, it really is the first record of their 80s comeback. That's why when they reissued that record about 2 or 3 years after that, they put a picture of the band as it was without Makeup from 85 or so, even though it wasn't the guys that played on the record. But that was really that kind of rebirth of them. I know it's Kiss, but I love them. Number 9, favorite artist in 2 or more bands. I'll do better than that. I'll do 3 bands, actually 4. I don't have any Elf records, but Ronnie James Dio, he was in Rainbow for several albums, and then he moved on. He became the new singer in Black Sabbath, replacing Ozzy Osbourne and bringing this band to a whole new level. Changed the way they write everything. In the early days, Sabbath was really, really riff heavy, and Ozzy kind of sang along to the riff. When Ronnie came into Black Sabbath, they got to open up those long, sparse chords, and Ronnie got to sing melodies over that space. Totally different style, totally different timbre of the music for what Black Sabbath was doing. Equally as valid, equally as awesome, but different. And then Ronnie left, took the drummer with him, formed his own band, Dio. That's where he pretty much remained the rest of his career. There was a couple of Sabbath reunions, and at one point they reunited with the guys from Sabbath just to do the Ronnie era stuff, and they called the band Heaven and Hell. So, but that's, I guess that, 5 bands? That's pretty cool. All right, what's next? Number 10. Beatles or Stones? All right, let me put it this way. I grew up with the Beatles. They were my first love. They were my first records. I own all the Beatle records, but I hardly ever listen to them because I've heard them so much, and every day I listen to Breakfast with the Beatles on Sirius XM, and I usually have the Beatle channel on for most of the day. So they're kind of like oxygen for me. They're there. I love them and can't live without them. But for purposeful listening, for going out and sitting in this room for 45 minutes to listen to a record, I'm going to go with the Stones. I've got a Stones tattoo on my leg. I'm one of those weirdos that loves the entire catalog, but I really love that 80s and 90s records from the Rolling Stones. This album in particular, very, very special to me, very nostalgic. My late brother and I, this was the album that we loved together. Great memories of throwing up on the Long Island Expressway in his Corvette, listening to this album. This was the first tour I saw them on. So that record has a special place to me. And I was, DJing a lot at the time when that came out. And that was, Mick always kind of went with what was happening at the time. So all of the singles off that record all had house remixes. And I was playing the shit out of that stuff out in the clubs. All right, what's next? You find a bag of weed. What do you listen to? Well, I'm not a smoker. I actually don't do any drugs. It's not my thing. But if I did, it would be funny as shit to be high and listening to Xanadu. ELO's on this, and when there's ELO involved, I'm all over it. But to be candid with you, this opens with Magic by Olivia Newton-John. And I'm here to tell you, for as metal as I am, as bluegrass as I am, Magic by Olivia Newton-John is my favorite all-time song, and I will get in a fucking fist fight over it. It's the best. 1980, fucking awesome. Olivia Newton-John, Magic, the best song, my favorite song ever. So there. Album from the 80s you still listen to. I listen to an awful lot of albums from the 80s. In fact, new music, really, there's not a lot out there for me these days. I'm one of those guys that's, stuck in the past. My regular DJ session that I do is called Backspin, meaning I don't play any new shit. It's always going to be nostalgic. It's always going to be from the past. However, there's a lot of 80s albums that are pillars of your collection. So like when you're listening to Purple Rain, you don't go, oh, this is a 1984 album from Prince. It's a monster Prince album. It could have come out in the 70s, could have come out in the 90s, could have come out last week. It's still going to be a great album. I think of an 80s album as one that's really particularly 80s in sound and style and all the other stuff, and that you wouldn't expect it to have any legs moving forward. Typically that means it's going to be sort of a one and done type of thing, or someone whose first album really happens for them and then nothing happens after that. So as an 80s record, The Hard Line, according to Terence Trent D'Arby, gets an awful lot of play, and it has since it came out. It's not that this reminds me of 1988 or anything like that. This is just a great album by a great musician. There was a couple of hits on it, but there's everything in there. There's James Brown, there's gospel, there's Prince, there's rock, there's blues, it's all there. So definitely check it out. That's usually a $10 or $15 album, but they're usually in pretty good pretty good condition, because most of the time people just listen to those two songs that were on MTV quite a bit. But yeah, great freaking record. Highly recommended. For me, it's an 80s record that I listen to over and over and over again. Number 13, artist whose political stance has soured on you. I'm not one for politics. Most people don't know what my politics are. I don't like to talk about it. I don't like to share about it. I don't like to go to a show and have some musician tell me what to believe, who I should vote for. I think that's fucking arrogant. I agree with Alice Cooper. He said something very similar to that. I don't want to go and sit in a stadium and have someone to preach to me, either from the right or the left, the middle. I don't give a shit. Keep it to yourself. You want to put it in the lyrics? That's fine. But don't get preachy in between songs. One of my favorite bands in the world had two guys in it that were diametrically opposed. One was hardcore left, one was hardcore right. The Ramones. And it didn't really have much of a bearing on them. Johnny and Joey didn't talk from the 70s until they died in the 2000s. And it was because of a girl. It wasn't about the politics. It was because of a girl. So that's about as political as I'm going to get. Number 14, show your favorite record label. A couple different interpretations of this. Some people was like, what's your favorite record company? Some were like, what record has like maybe a custom label that was pretty cool. For me, as a kid growing up, you knew that if you had one of those blue Casablanca records on an early Kiss record, you knew you were an OG Kiss fan. That's really all there was to it. I love that blue Kiss label. That means that you locked into one of those first, 74, 75, 76 records. Destroyer was the last one that was issued on the blue label, and that was only the first pressing or so. After that, you knew if you got the tan one on any of the first 5 records, including the live ones, if you got one of those tan labels on those, you knew you were late to the party. So that's kind of it's kind of the big dick of Kiss collecting, is having the blue labels. By the way, this doesn't have Kissin' Time on it, which means it was really early in the game, because the reissues included the cover of that novelty song. Anyway, see, we're record nerds to begin with, but when you put Kiss in the mix, we get like super stupid nerdy, and I'm one of them. All right, what's next? Number 15, a run of 3 great singles. How about 9 in a row? 1975 to 1979. Fleetwood Mac did 9 singles in a row. Tell me, would you take this collection of singles for your income? 75 to 79, Over My Head, Rhiannon, Say You Love Me, Go Your Own Way, Dreams, Don't Stop, You Make Lovin' Fun, Tusk, and Sarah. That is a hell of a run. Number 16, a record store day purchase that you still listen to. I had another one picked out. I had this Ramones box set picked out. I've talked about it before. It's pretty cool, and I do still listen to it a lot. But my son said, Dad, you got to do the Amorphous EP that came out last year. This was in 1997. This is a band that my family loves. They're a Finnish metal band called Amorphous. They started out as a death metal band, and kind of they got really into to like Finnish folklore, and that's where all the lyrics came from. Is all the Finnish national poetry and stuff. As time went on, they got a little more diverse, for sure. But after a while, they had these this very echoey thing with keyboards and things like that. So it's still heavy, still awesome metal, but with touches of Duran Duran to it. And that's not how they want to be discussed, that's for sure. But 1996 album or 97 album called The Elegy had a song on it called My Cantelli. And Cantelli is actually an instrument. When they issued the single, they did an acoustic version of it, and that is the version that I absolutely love. And it was available on a CD EP, and it was just recently issued as a record store day thing. Side 2 has a Hawkwind cover and a Kingston Wall cover. Comes with, the original inner sleeve. And a cool-ass marbly blue record, which is cool because it's kind of the color of the album cover for Elegy, was this kind of marbly blue thing, which I knew it was just kind of a weird freak accident thing that they were able to find that color. It's not like it's pressed on a picture of the album cover, but it's close enough for jazz, right? Number 17, you can be reincarnated as any artist, dead or alive. Who is it? Well, I wouldn't want to be reincarnated as someone who's alive, because then there'd be 2 of us, and you have that whole space-time continuum thing. Back to the Future showed us that that's not good. You start losing body parts and stuff like that. So if I was going to be reincarnated, it would be someone who's dead, which is also pretty fucked up, but we'll go with it. For me, it'd be Tommy Bolin. Tommy Bolin, great guitar player. Jazz fusion, rock, you name it. He played everything. He was in Zephyr. He played with Billy Cobham. He played in James Gang, replacing Joe Walsh. He replaced Ritchie Blackmore in Deep Purple. Did a couple of solo records, this and Private Eyes, with just a killer group of musicians from all over the dial. And unfortunately, his demons got the best of him and ended his life in 1976 as a very young man. As I said before, I don't do drugs. So if I could go back and be Tommy, I wouldn't do drugs. And I'd still be alive. I'd still be making wonderful music, because his potential was, just beginning to crack the surface. And he could have been, as revered as, Eric Clapton or Jimmy Page or one of those guys. He was that guy on the way, and unfortunately, his demons got the best of him. This copy is pretty beat to shit, but I don't know who or what this is, but there's a sticker on it that has an autograph, and it doesn't look like anyone's name that's on the record that I can tell. Then on the back, there's a signature in ballpoint pen. And I can't really read what that says either, but I can make out a T and a B, but I don't think it's his signature. If anyone knows who or what that is, if you can see it, let me know. All right, number 18. Best 3 lines of a song. He was born in the summer of his 27th year, coming home to a place he'd never been before. He left yesterday behind him. You might say he was born again. You might say he found a key for every door. John Denver, Rocky Mountain High. That's all I got to say about that. 19, album you never tire of. Steely Dan, Royal Scam. The Royal Scam is my favorite Steely Dan record. Steely Dan is one of my all-time favorite bands. I would say they're going to be in the top 3. One thing I love about Steely Dan is they are all-purpose. You can listen to them in any mood. You're angry, you're hyped up, you're mellow. Steely Dan works for all of them. And this one just has my favorite collection of Steely Dan songs. Plus, it's got a reggae song in it, so there. Share your favorite VC channels. There's a bunch of them. Lately, I've been watching a lot of Alex from Beer and Vinyl, Craig, Spirit of Vinyl, Mega Jeff's Rock Hard Vinyl, and MGK Boston. Mike from MGK Boston, he recently shouted me out on his latest contest. And as a result, I've gotten a good bit of viewers that have joined us. Maybe you're one of them, and I appreciate you joining us. But that's been pretty cool. So I've got to know some of those other new channels. I've been watching them and kind of catching up and making some comments, and I'll shout them out on some future ones. But yeah, that was very cool. So the channel's growing a little bit. We're still hoping to get the next plateau is going to be 100 subscribers. So if you get a chance, tell some friends, maybe share it with someone, or tell them about me, or tell them whatever. But yeah, give it a like, give it a subscribe if you're not one of the subscribers already. And if you want to check out Old Rage, that's my band. We're on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, all that type of stuff. If you like 55 plus punk rock, yeah, check it out for sure. Once again, I'm John. This is Wax and Relax, a Vinyl Listening Room, and we will see you on the B-side.